They move without sound, through distances so vast, they might as well be silence itself. They travel slow to us.
Look, the
but
comet
swift
is
in the
aligning with the
language of
constellation.
cosmos.
It's a
Comets
sign.
have no engines, no wings, no heartbeat we can hear. And yet, they have been moving since before Earth was whole, carrying within them fragments of a time when the sun was not yet a sun, when the planets were not yet born, when the solar system was only a cloud of cold dust turning in the dark. If you could follow one from the outer edge of the solar system to the warmth of the sun, you would find its journey to be a long exhalation, a breath released across millennia. These travelers have seen worlds form and fall silent. They have crossed the orbits of planets before life stirred there. They have passed Earth when there were no forests, no oceans, no sky blue above. They were old before we arrived, and they will be old when we are gone. Comets have always been strangers in our sky. They do not stay in one place. They arrive, blaze, and vanish, leaving us to wonder if they were ever real. We cannot summon them, cannot command them to appear. They come when their own long orbits call them inward. That makes them different from the familiar lights, the moon, the planets, the constant stars. Those are companions. Comets are visitors. To the ancient world, this made them unsettling. Stars were fixed. Planets wandered in graceful, predictable loops. The sun rose and set without fail. But a comet, a sudden-tailed light in the night, was a break in the order, a sign of disruption. Their long, luminous trails seemed like celestial strokes of fire drawn across the fabric of the heavens without warning. Some saw them as warnings of famine or war, others as the swords of gods drawn in anger. In China, they were broom stars, sweeping away the old. In Europe, they were harbingers of plague. In the Pacific Islands, they were traveling spirits. The fear was not unfounded. Sometimes comets truly did change the world. They could strike with enough force to reset life's course entirely. And yet, fear alone cannot explain humanity's fascination. There was beauty, too. Beauty in the improbable curve of their tails, in the way they seemed to emerge from nowhere, in their refusal to stay. Over time, fear gave way to curiosity. Astronomers began to record their returns, to measure their arcs across the constellations. Slowly, the chaos revealed itself as a pattern, not random, but regular, patient, repeating. The comet of 1066, seen over England before the Battle of Hastings, had been seen before and would be seen again. Some travelers returned every few decades, some only after centuries. And some, once they passed, would never be seen again by human eyes. To modern science, a comet is a body of ice, dust, and rock, typically only a few kilometers across. Its beauty, that great luminous tail, is not a permanent feature. It is born when sunlight strikes frozen gases, releasing them in shimmering streams. A comet is transformed when it comes close to the sun. It becomes briefly radiant, its solid core surrounded by a glowing coma, trailing a tail that can stretch millions of kilometers. And then, as it moves away again, the glow fades, the gases refreeze, and the comet returns to darkness. But there is something beyond chemistry in this dance of ice and light. The way a comet emerges from the darkness, blazes with all its being, and then disappears feels like a kind of storytelling. They carry not just matter but message, an arrival, a transformation, a departure. They appear to us as events, not fixtures. And perhaps this is why they have been so deeply entwined with human imagination. We tend to think of thoughts as sudden arrivals. They come unbidden, crossing the mind like comets across a sky, a flare of something new burning for a moment, then fading beyond reach. Like comets, they have origins we do not see, An idea might begin in the outer edges of our attention, where it sleeps for years, gathering quiet force until it swings inward, bright enough to notice. Then, as quickly, it is gone again, leaving only a trace, a memory, or nothing at all. It is tempting to imagine comets as literal messengers, emissaries from the edges of our cosmic home, bringing news we do not yet know how to read. Perhaps they carry not only physical matter but patterns, possibilities, thoughts that belong not to us but to the universe itself. They are older than human language, older than human thought. They have moved through spaces where no living thing has ever been, and in that silence, they have gathered the first whispers of creation. They are not stars. They are not planets. They are not bound to the cycles we know. They are the wild notes in the music of the solar system. The long pauses between their appearances give them an aura of secrecy, of holding something back. What do they carry in their frozen cores? Science has given us some answers: water ice, carbon compounds, perhaps the precursors of life. But there is more than the tangible. They carry the unknown. They carry mystery. And perhaps, in a way we cannot yet measure, they carry the seeds of thought, not in the sense of neurons and synapses, but in the sense of possibility, of ideas waiting to find the right mind, the right time to appear. The universe is vast beyond comprehension, and most of it will never touch us directly. Yet comets are among the few things that come to us, travelers who leave their far-off homes and pass near enough for us to see. They remind us that the cosmos is not static, that there are things on their way to us even now, even if we do not yet know what they are. When you see one in the sky, it is tempting to think of it as rare. And from our short human perspective, it is. But in the scale of the solar system, comets are always in motion, countless ones tracing unseen paths. At this very moment in the vast dark beyond Neptune, thousands of comets are beginning their long falls inward. They will not arrive in our lifetimes. Some will take tens of thousands of years to complete their journey. Yet they are already on their way. And so this story begins here, with the understanding that every comet is both an object and an event, both matter and metaphor. It begins with the thought that they might be more than ancient ice, that they might be something the universe is trying to tell us, that each comet might be, in its own way, a thought we have not yet had. Long before telescopes, before paper maps of the stars, before numbers could measure the sky, there were human eyes, raw, unshielded, looking upward in wonder and fear. We do not know the name of the first person who saw a comet. Perhaps it was a woman tending a fire in the open night, lifting her gaze to see a streak of pale flame suspended above the horizon. Perhaps it was a hunter lying awake beside his sleeping companions, watching the familiar constellations, and then noticing that something new had entered them, something bright and strange, a ghost with a tail. To those first witnesses, the sky was a vast memory board. Stars did not move much. Their patterns repeated each year like a great clock whose hands circled slowly. The moon waxed and waned in a cycle one could come to expect. Even the planets, wandering lights that moved among the stars, kept steady, deliberate paths. But a comet broke the pattern. It was the unexpected in a world where the sky's regularity was a comfort. For early cultures, the sudden arrival of such a thing was an event that demanded meaning. The human mind cannot help but weave stories for the unknown. The bright tail could be a torch carried by a god on the move, a burning spear thrown from another world, a wound in the sky bleeding light. And if it came before a great change, a death of a king, a famine, a war, the story of cause and effect was sealed. The comet had come as a sign. Ancient Chinese astronomers recorded comets more systematically than any other early civilization. They called them hui xing, broom stars, for their sweeping tails. In their court records, a comet's appearance was often paired with an interpretation, an omen that the emperor must act wisely, or that disorder was at hand. These records, written on bamboo strips and silk scrolls, span more than 2,000 years, tracing not only the comets, but the beliefs they stirred. In the Mediterranean world, comets were messengers of the gods. The Romans sometimes saw them as souls of the dead ascending into the heavens. One famous account tells of the funeral games for Julius Caesar, when a great comet burned in the sky for several days. It was taken as a sign of Caesar's deification, a cosmic seal on his ascent to immortality. For Polynesian navigators living on scattered islands in the vast Pacific, the sky was an ocean map. They knew the positions and rhythms of the stars intimately. A comet's sudden arrival was like an unknown ship appearing over the horizon, a stranger whose intentions could not yet be read. In some traditions, comets were traveling spirits, crossing the world on errands that might touch the lives of those who saw them. The Inuit of the Arctic saw comets as harbingers of change, sometimes associated with weather shifts or hunting fortunes. In the dry highlands of the Andes, the Inca linked bright comets to upheaval and war. The Maya, skilled sky watchers and keepers of celestial calendars, wove comets into their prophecies, noting when they cut across certain constellations as signals of transformation. These early interpretations were not mere superstition. They were, in a sense, an acknowledgement of the rare and the unpredictable, a way of absorbing a sudden event into a framework of meaning. When the world offers no explanation, story becomes a vessel for understanding. And so, for thousands of years, comets carried the weight of human emotion, fear, awe, reverence, hope. To see one was to feel that the universe had spoken directly to you, however cryptic its message. Even when science began to strip away some of the mystery, showing that comets followed long, calculable orbits, the emotional resonance remained. We can still sense something of what those first eyes must have felt. A comet, after all, is not a common sight. It arrives as if summoned by a hidden rhythm, stays only briefly, then departs into silence. The knowledge that it may not return for lifetimes, or at all, lends each encounter a certain gravity. If every comet is a thought we haven't had yet, then those ancient eyes were among the first to glimpse such thoughts approaching, raw, unshaped, undefined. They could not know the comet's path or its chemistry. They could only see the bright stroke across the familiar sky and feel its intrusion into the known order. That was enough to change the way they looked upward. The first eyes that saw them did not forget. They told the sight to their children, who told it to theirs. Over generations, these sightings became woven into oral traditions, mythologies, histories. A comet could be the hinge on which a story turned. The moment the old world ended and the new began. We inherit that memory, even if we do not always feel its weight. We live in cities where the night sky is drowned by light, where most people may never see a comet with their own eyes. Yet somewhere deep in our species' memory, the sight of one still stirs something. A faint echo of the first time someone looked up and saw the uninvited light. That moment, thousands of years ago, is the beginning of our shared story with comets. It is the opening chapter of a conversation that spans from firelit nights to observatories, from prophecy to physics. And it began simply, with a pair of eyes, a spark of astonishment, and the sudden knowledge that the sky could change. Before there were comets, there was only dust, not the soft dust of bookshelves or summer windowsills, but the raw ash of creation, fragments of atoms born in the cores of ancient stars, scattered by explosions so violent that space itself seemed to shudder. These atoms drifted for millions of years, colliding, combining, breaking apart again in the cold between stars. 4.5 billion years ago, they began to gather into something new. The sun was being born, a bright collapsing knot in a swirling disk of gas and dust. Around it, matter clumped and fused, the seeds of planets taking shape. But not everything joined into worlds. Some fragments remained small, loosely bound, left in the shadows at the far reaches of the disk. These would become the comets, tiny frozen archives of the solar system's earliest days. In those first moments, the young sun was a violent neighbor. It blazed with flares and solar winds that swept lighter gases outward, scouring the inner system clean. Farther out, beyond the orbit of the young Jupiter, it was cold enough for water vapor to freeze. Here, ice and rock fused into rough, irregular bodies, comets in their infancy, still unnamed, still homeless. They formed in regions where extremes met, the gentleness of ice crystals growing grain by grain, and the fury of gravitational giants hurling them into new paths. Some were trapped in looping orbits, bound to return again and again. Others were flung outward entirely, exiled to the deep dark where the sun was just another star. Comets are often called dirty snowballs, but the name hardly captures their complexity. Their ice contains not just water but frozen carbon dioxide, methane, ammonia, volatile substances that vaporize when warmed, releasing clouds of gas and dust. Embedded in this ice are tiny grains of rock and metal, some older than the solar system itself. These grains are the ashes of supernovae, the relics of ancient suns. In a way, comets are the opposite of planets. Planets have changed since their birth, weathered by wind and water, reshaped by volcanoes, softened by time. Comets remain largely unaltered. Their interiors have been preserved in cold storage for billions of years. To touch a comet is to touch the past directly, without the layers of change that time lays over most things. But their history is not just frozen, it is also violent. The early solar system was a place of constant collision. Comets and asteroids struck the young planets endlessly, delivering water, organics, and sometimes destruction. It is possible that much of Earth's water came from these icy wanderers, arriving as gifts in the aftermath of chaos. If so, then comets did not just witness the birth of life here. They may have helped to make it possible. Think of it. Oceans born from the melt of alien snow, rivers that began as ice drifting in the dark between worlds, clouds carrying water that once lay locked inside a comet's core far beyond the warmth of the sun. The duality of comets, bringers of both creation and destruction, is written into their nature. They are as capable of seeding life as ending it. In this, they resemble fire. Fire can warm, nourish, and protect, or it can burn and consume. A comet's ice is the gentlest thing, its collisions the most violent. Together, they mirror the universe's strange logic, where birth and death are not opposites but companions. When we study comets today, we see them as time capsules carrying the original ingredients from which the solar system was built. But perhaps they are more than that. Perhaps they are also symbols of the forces that shaped us, the balance of gentleness and violence, of preservation and change. The ice they carry is not eternal. Every time a comet swings near the sun, it loses some of its mass. The heat drives off gas, peeling away layers that have been untouched for billions of years. Slowly, over many returns, a comet erodes into nothing. Some crumble entirely, scattering into clouds of dust that will one day fall into Earth's atmosphere as meteor showers. Others survive, shrinking with each visit until their cores are inert, their journeys ended. And yet, for all their fragility, comets endure far longer than any human civilization. They move on timescales we can barely comprehend. A comet that last visited in the age of mammoths might be on its way back now, to be seen by eyes that live in a world of steel and satellites. Another might be in the midst of a million-year journey inward, its arc so long it will pass hundreds of generations before it returns. To think about comets is to think about deep time, about spans so vast that our lives feel like moments. They are reminders that the universe's memory is longer than ours, and that we live in the brief light between two dark immensities. Ice and fire, preservation and destruction, stillness and motion. In the story of comets, these opposites are not contradictions, but truths that live together. They are the nature of the universe itself. And as we follow these ancient travelers further into their story, we may begin to see them not just as frozen remnants, but as living symbols of the strange balance that gave rise to us all. Every comet is bound by an invisible thread, a gravitational leash that keeps it tied to the sun no matter how far it strays. Its path is an ellipse, sometimes stretched almost to breaking, sometimes tight and swift, but always faithful to its arc. From a distance, this movement seems slow, almost hesitant. A comet can spend decades, centuries, even millions of years out in the far reaches of the solar system, moving through darkness so deep it might as well be sleep. Then some subtle influence, a nudge from a passing star, the distant pull of a planet, shifts its course just enough, and it begins the long fall inward, drawn again to the sun's light. In the language of celestial mechanics, these paths are predictable. Given enough data, a comet's position, its speed, the gravity of nearby bodies, we can forecast its return with startling accuracy. But there's something more than calculation at work here. The orbits of comets feel like habits of the universe, patterns it has practiced for billions of years. And in this way, comets are not so different from the thoughts that move through the human mind. A thought can seem to vanish, disappearing into the dim edges of awareness. You might think it's gone forever, forgotten. But then, years later, without warning, it swings back into view. A memory, a question, a fragment of an idea you had once begun to explore. You feel the pull of it again, as though it had been traveling in some vast and hidden orbit, waiting for the right alignment to return. Some thoughts circle quickly, coming back again and again in short intervals. Others have long arcs, returning so rarely that you barely recognize them when they do. Some, once they pass, will never return. There is a kind of poetry in imagining the mind as its own solar system, ideas and memories as bodies moving along paths shaped by forces we only partly understand. Some are heavy planets that never leave, always present in our awareness. Others are comets, arriving in bursts of brightness, vanishing just as quickly, leaving us changed in ways we might not immediately see. In science, the return of a comet is an opportunity, a chance to compare what we saw last time with what we see now. Has its orbit shifted? Has it lost mass? Does it still follow the same path? So too with returning thoughts. We are not the same people we were the last time they came around. What we know now changes the way we see them, just as a comet's journey changes the way it appears. Some orbits are altered by encounters. A comet passing close to Jupiter might be pulled into a shorter path, visiting more often. Another might be flung out so far that it will never come back. In our minds, a single conversation, a single book, a single moment of beauty can do the same, altering the trajectory of an idea forever. The mechanics of this are precise, but the experience of it feels almost mystical. To watch a comet is to witness the unfolding of a cycle far larger than your own life. To feel a thought return after years is to glimpse the continuity of your own inner world, to see that there are connections threading through your life's story even when you weren't aware of them. There's a quiet truth in this. The things that seem gone are often still moving just beyond our sight. In the vastness of space, a comet's orbit is not lonely. It crosses paths with planets, asteroids, other comets. Each encounter leaves a trace, a shift in speed, a change in course. Over time, its path becomes a record of every influence it has ever felt. Our minds are the same. The orbits of our thoughts are shaped by the people we meet, the places we see, the events we survive. Even when we forget the details, the shape of our thinking carries the memory of those encounters. It is tempting to think of orbits as repetition, the same journey made over and over again. But no two passes are ever exactly alike. The planets have moved, the sun's light has changed, the comet has shed or gathered material. Likewise, when a thought returns, it is never quite the same thought. Time has altered it, and time has altered you. If every comet is a thought we haven't had yet, perhaps every returning comet is a thought we are having again, but differently, with more light, more shadow, more detail than before. In the end, orbits are less about repetition than about relationship. The comet's path exists because of its bond with the sun, a pull it cannot escape. Our recurring thoughts exist because they are bound to something in us, a truth we have not yet fully understood, a question we have not yet answered, a feeling we are not yet done feeling. The beauty of comets is not only in their light, but in their loyalty. No matter how far they travel, they are part of a greater pattern. And so are we, moving in our own unseen orbits, carrying with us the fragments of what we've been and the hints of what we might yet become. Most comets pass us by without harm. They sweep through the inner solar system, tails unfurled like banners, then fade back into the dark. Their light touches us only with wonder. But not all encounters are so gentle. Some comets do not merely visit. They arrive on collision courses. It is one of the great paradoxes of the cosmos. The same forces that guide a comet into a beautiful arc across the sky can also guide it straight into a planet. A difference of only a fraction of a degree in its path can determine whether it will graze harmlessly past Earth or strike with the energy of millions of nuclear bombs. We live on a planet that remembers such meetings. The scars are carved into its crust, into the fossil record, into the history of life itself. 66 million years ago, a comet or asteroid. The debate continues, plunged into what is now the Yucatan Peninsula, unleashing a chain of events that ended the reign of the dinosaurs. The skies darkened, temperatures plummeted, ecosystems collapsed, and in the clearing of that devastation, mammals, including our distant ancestors, began to flourish. This is the dual nature of impact, destruction that also creates the space for something new. Without that cataclysm, we might not be here at all. Not all collisions are so large. Many comets leave smaller traces, craters on the moon, glassy impact sites on Earth, subtle layers of debris hidden in ancient sediments. Some may have brought more than damage. They could have carried water and organic molecules to the early Earth, seeding the conditions for life. In this sense, comets may have struck us twice, once in violence, once in gift-giving. If every comet is a thought we haven't had yet, then collisions are the thoughts that arrive too forcefully to ignore. Most ideas slip quietly into the mind, shaping us over time. But some crash in, shattering the old patterns in a single moment. A conversation, a revelation, a sudden piece of news. They can hit with the force of impact, scattering the debris of our assumptions, leaving us stunned and remade. The human story is filled with such collisions. The invention of language, the discovery of fire, the realization that Earth orbits the sun, the splitting of the atom. Each was an impact, a moment when a new thought struck the world with irreversible consequence. Like cosmic collisions, these moments are rare, but their effects echo through generations. And yet, just as most comets never hit Earth, most ideas never change everything. The majority pass by, noticed or unnoticed, their influence subtle and slow. This is perhaps a mercy. If every idea arrived with the force of an impact, we would live in constant upheaval. Still, we are drawn to the drama of collision. We study craters, run simulations of hypothetical strikes, send telescopes to watch comets close to planetary paths. Partly this is caution. We wish to be ready should a dangerous visitor approach. But partly it is fascination. There is something compelling in the knowledge that the quiet arcs of celestial motion can, in a moment, turn into an event that reshapes a world. Scientists speak in probabilities. They track objects that could one day intersect with Earth's orbit, calculating the odds of impact centuries in advance. The truth is, the solar system is large and direct hits are rare. But in cosmic terms, rare does not mean never. Given enough time, the improbable becomes inevitable. It is the same with transformative ideas. They may seem distant, unlikely, irrelevant to our moment. But history shows that given time, such thoughts have a way of arriving. And when they do, they can alter not only what we know, but who we are. A comet impact is more than a collision of matter. It is an exchange of worlds. The energy of one body is given to another. Fragments of each are scattered into space, sometimes to fall back, sometimes to travel on. In the same way, when an idea collides with a mind, something of both remains changed. The mind takes in the idea, and the idea takes on new life within the mind. The Earth itself bears the record of its meetings with comets, not only in craters but in the distribution of elements, in the chemical composition of its oceans and atmosphere. Our own minds carry the record of their impacts too, in the beliefs we hold, the knowledge we share, the questions we still ask. When we look at the moon through a telescope, its surface is pitted with craters, each one the frozen memory of a collision. Some are fresh and sharp-edged, others softened by time. Earth's surface, reshaped by weather and life, hides many of its own scars. But they are still there, beneath forests and seas, beneath cities and fields. If we could map the mind in the same way, perhaps we would see it too, cratered with moments of impact. Some would be deep and transformative, others faint and nearly forgotten. Together, they would form the landscape of who we are. In the end, the story of comets and impacts is the story of change, sometimes gentle, sometimes sudden, always shaping. It is the reminder that in a universe of predictable orbits, there is always the possibility of the unexpected, the moment when two paths cross in a way that neither will survive unchanged. And perhaps somewhere in the cold dark right now, there is a comet beginning a journey that will one day end in such a meeting, not in our lifetime, perhaps not in our species' lifetime, but in the long unfolding of time. A collision waiting to happen, a thought waiting to arrive. The ocean's surface shimmers under the sun, an endless blue that seems as old as the world itself. It is easy to imagine that Earth was born with its waters, that they have always been here, rising and falling in their tides, shaping coastlines, feeding clouds. But the truth may be stranger. Some scientists believe that the oceans were not born here at all, that they came from the cold edges of the solar system, delivered by countless messengers of ice. In the earliest days of Earth, our planet was molten. Its surface boiled with heat left over from its formation, and any water that tried to settle here would have been turned instantly to vapor, lost to space. If oceans were to exist, they would need to arrive later, after the crust had cooled enough to hold them. And so the theory arose. Comets, icy bodies from the outer reaches, could have brought the water. Imagine that ancient time, the solar system still young, filled with debris left over from the birth of planets. Comets, their cores made of frozen water, carbon dioxide, methane, and more exotic ices, wandered on erratic paths. Many were pulled inward by the gravity of the giant planets, hurled into the inner solar system, where they struck the newborn Earth again and again. Each impact shattered the comet into vapor and fragments, releasing its cargo of water into the atmosphere. Over millions of years, those impacts may have added up, a steady rain of icy deliveries filling the basins that would become oceans. The idea is elegant. The blue expanses we see today might be the melted breath of comets. It is a vision that turns every wave, every drop, into a relic of a journey across unimaginable distances. When you stand at the edge of the sea, the water touching your feet could be made of molecules that began in a distant Kuiper belt object, drifting in darkness for billions of years before finding a home here. But the story may be more complicated. Some evidence suggests that not all of Earth's water came from comets. Isotopic measurements, the ratio of different kinds of hydrogen in water, show that some comets do not match the composition of our oceans. This hints that asteroids, too, may have been water bearers, delivering liquid and hydrated minerals. Perhaps the truth is that Earth's oceans are a blend of gifts from many kinds of celestial messengers, each adding their share to the whole. And then there is the more profound question. If comets brought water, could they also have brought life's first ingredients? For inside their frozen hearts, we have found amino acids, the building blocks of proteins. We have found complex organic molecules, the raw material for DNA and cell membranes. These molecules form in the cold depths of space, shaped by ultraviolet light and cosmic rays over eons. They do not need a planet to exist. They need only time, ice, and the quiet chemistry of the void. If those molecules fell to Earth in the ice of comets, they might have seeded the first steps toward life. Not life itself, but the alphabet from which life's sentences could be written. In this view, we are the children of a mingling, Earth's solid ground, warmed by the sun, meeting the drifting chemistry of comets from far away. Without one, perhaps there would have been no life at all. It is a humbling thought that the water we drink, the molecules in our blood, the structures of our cells could be older than the Earth itself. That each sip of water is, in some sense, a taste of the galaxy's history. The hydrogen in it was born in the Big Bang, The oxygen was forged in dying stars. And perhaps the two first met inside a comet's icy crust, long before our planet was ready to receive them. If every comet is a thought we haven't had yet, then the ones that brought water were thoughts about possibility, about the conditions for life. They were not the sudden impacts that destroy, but the slow gifts that make new things possible. Their arrival did not end an age, it began one. Standing at the edge of the sea, you can think of it this way. Every wave that curls and falls is a comet's echo. The salt in the water, the spray on your face, the deep currents, all of it part of a story that began far away. The ocean is not just a feature of Earth. It is a record of cosmic generosity. In some indigenous traditions, water is not merely a substance, but a relative, a living participant in the world's story. If we take seriously the idea that our water came from comets, then water's journey stretches back beyond Earth's own history. It becomes not only our relative, but a traveler from another realm, carrying memories of the cold, distant dark, of slow revolutions around the sun, of the faint light of stars far from here. We might think of the ocean as the mind of the Earth, and comets as the dreams that first gave it thought. Each delivery of water was a drop of consciousness, pooling into the great mind of the planet, until one day it was deep enough for life to swim in. Today, space agencies send missions to comets not only to study their chemistry, but to touch these messengers directly. When the European Space Agency's Rosetta spacecraft sent the Philae lander to the surface of Comet 67P/Churyumov-Gerasimenko, it was as if we were shaking hands with one of our oldest ancestors. We drilled into its ice, tasted its gases, looked at the dust grains that had been untouched since before the planets formed. And in that moment, we were not just studying comets. We were meeting a piece of the origin story of our own seas, our own bodies. The ocean, for all its vastness, has edges, but the journey that brought it here does not. It stretches outward into the solar system, to the frozen realms where new comets still wait. Perhaps one day, far in the future, a new comet will bring water to another world, and that planet will begin its own story of life. And so the waves roll on, carrying with them the memory of journeys older than Earth, older than the continents, older even than the sun's steady light. Every drop that falls from a cloud, every glass of water poured, every tear shed could be part of that memory. The ocean is not just water. It is the sum of every comet's long voyage home. A comet's ice is not pure. It is not the clean, transparent frost of a winter morning, nor the clear cubes that clink in a glass. It is something older, darker, an archive of the solar system's first days, full of strange inclusions and whispers from before the planets were born. Within that ice, there are ghosts. When a comet is far from the sun, its ice is locked in stillness. Temperatures plunge hundreds of degrees below freezing, and the molecules inside cannot move. They sit in their crystalline cages like words sealed in a jar. That stillness preserves not only water, but carbon dioxide, ammonia, methane, and dozens of other compounds that formed in the cold of interstellar space. Some of these molecules are fragile, the kind that would quickly be destroyed on Earth's warm surface. But here, in the dark freezer of the outer solar system, they have lasted for billions of years. These are not just records of the comet itself. They are relics of the cloud of gas and dust that gave birth to the sun. Imagine holding a piece of ice in your hand that has not melted since before Earth existed. Imagine breaking it open and finding, trapped inside, molecules that once drifted between stars. This is what it means to touch a comet. You are touching time itself, compressed and frozen into a body small enough to fit into a spacecraft's camera frame. When we send probes to study comets, we do not just measure their size or orbit. We look for the ghosts, for noble gases that speak of the temperature of the early solar system, for complex organics that hint at life's recipes, for tiny dust grains older than the sun itself. Some of these grains are older still, born in the winds of dying stars, and carried into our solar system when it was nothing more than a swirling cloud. They have isotopic fingerprints unlike anything on Earth, telling us they came from far away, carried here by chance. They are stardust in the truest sense, the embers of other suns kept safe in a comet's icy vault. But these ghosts do not only tell us of birth, they also speak of loss. The early solar system was a chaotic place. Many worlds were shattered, their fragments lost to the void or swept into the sun. Comets may hold pieces of those lost worlds, their minerals and metals scattered like bones in a frozen grave. If we can read them correctly, we might find clues to planets that no longer exist, or to oceans that never formed, or to atmospheres that were stripped away. And there is another kind of ghost in cometary ice, one that is less tangible. It is the ghost of the conditions in which the molecules formed, the faint glow of a distant star in a cold nebula, the cosmic rays that altered their shapes, the dust that shielded them from light for millions of years. These are not events we can witness directly, but they are written in the ratios of isotopes, in the alignments of crystals, in the subtle signatures left behind by chemistry that unfolded in the deep silence between suns. The Rosetta mission taught us this in 2014, when it followed Comet 67P/Churyumov-Gerasimenko for over 2 years. Instruments detected oxygen gas escaping from the comet, oxygen that had been trapped in the ice since the dawn of the solar system. This was surprising, because oxygen is reactive and should not survive unchanged for billions of years. Yet there it was, as if sealed in amber, waiting to be released. It was like hearing a voice from a time before Earth had air to breathe. Even the dust a comet sheds is full of echoes. Some particles carry magnetic signatures from the moment they solidified, tiny compasses frozen in place. Others are made of fragile, fluffy aggregates that would crumble at the slightest touch, yet somehow survive the long fall into the inner solar system. They are physical paradoxes, impossibly delicate, yet ancient beyond imagining. To study these ghosts is to engage in a kind of cosmic archaeology. But unlike earthly archaeologists, we cannot walk the ruins with our own eyes. We must send instruments across millions of kilometers into darkness and cold, hoping they will return carrying stories we cannot find anywhere else. There is a haunting beauty in this work. We know that every comet that falls toward the sun is slowly dying. Each pass burns off more ice, releases more gas, strips away another layer of its frozen memory. Eventually, the ghost will be gone. The body will break apart, leaving nothing but dust to scatter into space. The archive will vanish. And so, each comet is a fragile library, and every close approach to the sun is both a revelation and an erasure. The jets of vapor and dust that bloom from its surface are pages being torn out and flung into the void. We must read them while we can. Perhaps that is why comets have always stirred human imagination, not just because they are beautiful, but because they feel impermanent. Their tails sweep the sky for a brief season, and then they are gone, not to return for decades or centuries. We sense that they carry messages we are lucky to glimpse at all. If we listen closely, the ghosts in the ice speak in many voices. The voice of the sun before it was born, the voice of the stars that came before, the voice of the dark nebula that once cradled them all. And maybe, if we are quiet enough, we can hear the voice of the future, too, telling us that there are still thoughts we have not had yet, still comets that have not yet fallen, still oceans waiting in the dark. The solar system is not an even, continuous neighborhood. It is a city of extremes, a warm, bright center and a frozen, dark frontier. Between these two realms lies an unthinkable distance, a gulf so vast that light itself takes hours to cross. At the farthest reaches, where the sun is no brighter than the moon appears from Earth, there is a realm we have never seen directly, the domain of comets before they begin their journeys. It is here, in this icy wilderness, that comets wait. Some rest in the Kuiper belt, just beyond Neptune's path, a place filled with small, icy worlds. Others are even farther away in the Oort cloud, a spherical shell of frozen bodies that surrounds the solar system like a cosmic halo. The Oort cloud is so distant that a spacecraft traveling at the speed of our fastest probes would take thousands of years to reach it. It is, for now, purely theoretical, its existence inferred from the strange, looping orbits of long-period comets. From these edges, comets are the messengers. They leave their deep freeze homes, drawn inward by gravity's invisible thread, and carry with them the conditions of their birthplaces. They bring the chemistry of the outer solar system into the light of the inner worlds. They are emissaries from a land of perpetual night. When we study a comet close to the sun, we are not only studying the object itself, we are peering into a world that exists billions of kilometers away. The gases it releases, the dust it sheds, the shapes of its ices. All of these tell us about the temperatures, radiation, and chemical reactions that shaped it far beyond our reach. Some comets are short-period travelers, visiting the sun every few years or decades. These often come from the Kuiper belt, where their orbits have been nudged inward by encounters with giant planets like Neptune or Jupiter. Others are long-period wanderers, appearing only once in recorded history, or not at all, if their paths never again bring them near the sun. These are the deep messengers, the ones that come from the Oort cloud, perhaps perturbed by a passing star or the slow tidal pull of the Milky Way itself. Imagine a world so far away that the sun is just another star in the night sky, a tiny pinprick of light among countless others. This is the realm of the Oort cloud. Out here, space is not empty. It is filled with trillions of icy bodies, each one a time capsule from the early solar system. And yet, in the entire history of humanity, only a handful have ever come close enough for us to see. When they do, it is like receiving a letter from a long-lost relative, one who has been living beyond the edge of the map for billions of years. The envelope is ragged from its journey, the ink smeared by cosmic weather, but the message inside is still legible. It speaks of a time when the solar system was young, when planets were forming and migrating, when debris was scattered like confetti across the void. These messengers are not only historians, they are also couriers of possibility. Some theories suggest that comets may have delivered much of Earth's water, as well as organic molecules, the building blocks of life. If true, then every ocean wave and every living cell carries a fragment of the outer solar system. It means that the spark of life may have been lit in part by a visitor from the coldest corners of our sun's domain. But comets are not gentle couriers. Their arrivals can be catastrophic. In Earth's past, comet impacts may have triggered mass extinctions or reshaped entire ecosystems. They remind us that the outer solar system is not a silent, detached realm. It is connected to us by threads of motion and chance, and those threads can bring both creation and destruction. The dual nature of comets, as bringers of life and agents of devastation, is part of why they have inspired awe and fear in human cultures for millennia. In ancient China, comets were broom stars, sweeping the heavens clean and heralding great change. In medieval Europe, they were omens of disaster, portents of plague or war. And yet, in Polynesian traditions, some comets were seen as navigational signs, guiding wayfinders across the open ocean. Today we see them differently, not as omens, but as data. Yet the sense of wonder remains. To watch a comet grow a tail, to see it stretch millions of kilometers across space, is to witness a transformation. A dark, frozen body, invisible for most of its orbit, becomes suddenly radiant. It is as if the messenger has put on ceremonial robes to deliver its message in full splendor. Sometimes the message is not what we expect. The Stardust mission, which flew through the coma of Comet Wild 2, found minerals that could only have formed in high heat, the kind near the young sun. This meant that material had somehow traveled from the innermost regions of the solar system all the way to its outer edge, where it became part of a comet. The messenger carried not only its own story, but fragments of other stories, other places, other times. In this way, comets remind us that the solar system is not static. It is a network of exchange, a vast and ancient circulation of matter. Ice from the edge can find its way to the heart, and rock from the heart can drift back to the edge. Every messenger is both a sender and a receiver, part of an endless dialogue across billions of kilometers. When a comet finally swings around the sun and begins its long journey outward again, we watch it go, knowing that it may not return in our lifetimes, or at all. It will fade into the darkness, its message delivered, perhaps to be replaced by another. But even as it vanishes, it carries our questions with it back toward the frozen edge. Perhaps in some far future, it will return with new answers. For now, all we can do is listen carefully. Because every messenger that comes to us from the edge is not just telling us about where it came from. It is also showing us that the edges themselves are not boundaries, they are beginnings. The life of a comet is not measured in years, but in passages. It is defined by the number of times it dares to approach the sun, to enter the furnace of light, and return again to the dark. Each passage is a chapter, and each chapter takes something away. A comet is born whole, a compact, frozen mixture of ice, dust, and trapped gases formed billions of years ago in the solar system's first days. Out in the far reaches, where sunlight is weak and the vacuum is undisturbed, this mixture remains pristine for eons. In the Kuiper belt or Oort cloud, nothing melts, nothing stirs. Time itself feels paused. But the moment a comet's orbit changes, perhaps by the tug of a giant planet or the distant influence of a passing star, its life begins in earnest. Gravity pulls it inward, slowly at first, then faster. It feels the sun grow brighter, the black sky thinning into a field of gold. The change is gradual but irreversible. The long sleep is over. When the comet crosses a certain threshold, a few astronomical units from the sun, the surface begins to change. Ices locked for billions of years start to sublimate, transforming directly into vapor. Jets of gas burst from fissures in the surface, carrying dust and particles with them. A thin atmosphere, or coma, begins to form around the nucleus, expanding into space. The comet is no longer an invisible rock of ice. It is alive in the eyes of anyone who can see it. But every display has a cost. The jets that create the comet's beauty also rob it of its mass. Dust drifts away forever. Ice is lost to space. Each close pass around the sun strips away another layer. Slowly, the solid body becomes lighter, smaller, more fragile. This is the slow burn of a comet's life, an erosion not of fire but of sunlight. Unlike an asteroid, which can circle the sun almost unchanged for billions of years, a comet spends its life losing pieces of itself. Some survive for hundreds of passages, others disintegrate after only a few. The famous comet Shoemaker-Levy 9 was torn apart entirely by Jupiter's gravity before it ever reached the sun again, its fragments falling into the giant planet's clouds like a chain of meteors. Even for those that last, the process is inevitable. Imagine a candle carried into a windstorm. It burns brighter than ever, but the flame consumes the wax at an accelerated pace. In a similar way, a comet's most spectacular moments are also the ones that shorten its lifespan the most. Short-period comets like Halley's complete their orbits in decades. They return again and again, each time a little dimmer, their tails a little shorter. We see them change over the course of a human life. By contrast, long-period comets may have only one chance to shine before vanishing into the dark for millennia or forever. They burn bright and disappear, their slow erosion hidden in the cold beyond our reach. Sometimes the erosion is sudden and violent. Internal gas pressure can cause a comet to split apart mid-orbit, scattering its pieces along the path like cosmic breadcrumbs. From Earth, we may see this as a sudden brightening, the comet's death cry made visible in the night sky. Over time, those fragments spread out, becoming meteor showers when Earth passes through their dusty remains. In this way, a comet's life can outlast its body, its debris falling into our skies for centuries. To watch a comet die is to witness a strange kind of generosity. It gives everything it has: ice, dust, gas. And in doing so, it leaves behind beauty, data, and sometimes even the seeds of life. Its destruction is not wasteful, it is transformative. From a human perspective, there is a bittersweetness in this. The more often we see a comet, the closer we are to its end. To stand under the sky and watch Halley's Comet blaze for a few weeks is to know that in 200 years it will be smaller, dimmer, perhaps gone entirely. Yet the same fate has meaning. The comet is not static, not immortal, but part of the great cycle of matter. It is proof that beauty is sometimes fleeting, and that the fleeting can be all the more precious for it. Some astronomers speak of extinct comets, bodies that have lost so much ice that they no longer form tails. They become dark, inert rocks, indistinguishable from asteroids, their cometary nature betrayed only by the orbits they still follow. These are the elders of the comet world, worn down to silence, their stories sealed away in their cores. And still, even these silent relics are not truly gone. A collision, a crack, or a shift in orbit can awaken pockets of buried ice, giving them one last blaze before the end. The slow burn can be interrupted, the final chapter extended by a sudden flare. In that moment, the comet becomes a ghost that has returned to life, reminding us that even in apparent stillness, change is possible. From a philosophical view, the slow burn of a comet's life mirrors our own. We too are shaped by cycles of energy and erosion. We too give pieces of ourselves away, in work, in love, in art, knowing that our brightest moments often cost us the most. Yet those costs are not losses in the purest sense. They are transformations, exchanges with the universe. In the end, every comet faces the same choice, or rather, the same inevitability. Continue orbiting in darkness and remain whole but unseen, unknown. Or pass close to the sun, lose part of yourself, but blaze across the sky for the eyes of worlds to see. Neither path is wrong. One preserves, the other illuminates. And perhaps the universe needs both. When the comet finally fades, whether by quiet exhaustion or sudden collapse, its materials are not lost. They drift into space, join the interplanetary dust, or fall into planets, moons, and atmospheres. In this way, the comet's slow burn is also a form of return, its matter becoming part of other worlds, other cycles, other stories. We may never know all the names or journeys of these icy travelers, but each time we see a comet, we are witnessing a living moment in a vast, ongoing process, the slow and beautiful burning of something ancient, a flame carried across the solar system, one passage at a time. The sun is not gentle. From a distance of billions of kilometers, it seems serene, a steady disk of light, constant and calm. But up close, its presence is a roar, a furnace, an unblinking gaze that no surface can endure unchanged. For a comet to approach the sun is to enter a place where ice remembers what it is to be water, and then forgets again in the same instant. The first signs begin far from the sun, long before the comet's tail unfurls. As it drifts inward, sunlight intensifies. Ices buried beneath the surface awaken, molecules stirring after billions of years in stillness. The nucleus, a solid heart of frozen water, carbon dioxide, ammonia, methane, and dust, feels the warmth creeping deeper. Weak gases, like carbon monoxide, begin to escape first, hissing from microfractures like the first breaths after a long sleep. Then, as the comet crosses the frost line, the transformation accelerates. The frozen water itself begins to sublimate, skipping the liquid state entirely. The change is violent on a microscopic scale. One moment a molecule is locked in an ice lattice, the next it is free, racing into space at hundreds of meters per second. These escaping gases carry dust and grit from the surface, throwing them outward into the coma, the hazy envelope that grows around the nucleus like a luminous halo. Close enough to the sun, the coma expands to thousands of kilometers. The nucleus, perhaps only a few kilometers across, is now shrouded in a sphere of light and motion many times larger than Earth. Through a telescope, it seems alive, breathing in the solar wind and exhaling streams of gas and dust. The tail, the most iconic feature of a comet, is not one thing but two. The ion tail, composed of charged particles, forms first. It glows in shades of blue as solar ultraviolet light strips electrons from escaping gases. This tail points directly away from the sun, shaped by the invisible flow of the solar wind. Then there is the dust tail, broader, paler, curved, made of microscopic grains pushed away by sunlight's pressure. Together, they sweep across millions of kilometers, a visible record of the comet's surrender to the star's heat. But the beauty masks violence. Jets of gas erupt from the surface like geysers, powered by pockets of ice beneath crusts of darker material. These jets can spin the comet on its axis, altering its rotation. Some break open new fissures, revealing deeper layers of volatile ice. Sometimes a piece of the nucleus breaks away entirely, tumbling into the void. From Earth, such an event may look like a sudden flare in brightness, a cosmic exclamation mark in the comet's journey. The process is uneven, chaotic. One side of the comet may be quiet and still, cloaked in shadow, while the other is a frenzy of jets and outbursts, sunlight carving intricate gullies and pits into the surface. The landscapes revealed by spacecraft like Rosetta are alien and yet familiar. Cliffs of shadow, smooth plains of fine dust, strange mounds and boulders, all sculpted by the meeting of ice and fire. The closer the comet gets, the faster these changes happen. In a matter of days, its appearance can shift dramatically. The coma brightens. The tails lengthen. New jets ignite as sunlight penetrates fresh fractures. The comet becomes not just an object, but a performance, a dance of matter and energy played out in real time. And then comes perihelion, the closest point to the sun. For many comets, this is the climax, the brightest moment, the time when they are most visible from Earth. Here, the intensity of sunlight can be hundreds of times greater than in the cold reaches where the journey began. Temperatures on the sunlit surface can soar high enough to boil away almost any frozen substance. The comet roars with activity, flinging billions of tons of material into space. If we could stand on its surface, an impossibility, but worth imagining, we would hear nothing in the vacuum, but we would see jets arcing against the black sky, dust falling like snow, and sunlight blazing through clouds of vapor. It would be a world dissolving before our eyes. Some comets do not survive perihelion. The heat and tidal forces can crack the nucleus apart, leaving only a stream of fragments. Others lose so much material that they emerge shrunken, their active surfaces depleted. and yet some endure, pulling away from the sun on a long, cooling arc, the violence of their closest approach already fading into memory. For the survivors, the transformation is not entirely over. As they recede from the sun, the coma contracts, the jets quiet, the tails fade. The comet becomes once again a dark and inert object, carrying with it the scars and hollows of its trial by fire. But the materials it shed remain behind, scattered across space in fine trails. In time, planets and moons may sweep through these trails, turning them into meteor showers, brief, luminous echoes of the comet's most brilliant days. To watch this cycle is to be reminded of an ancient truth, that creation and destruction are often the same process, seen from different angles. The sun's heat does not just destroy a comet, it reveals it. Without the fire, the ice would remain invisible, locked away in the dark. And without the ice, the fire would have nothing to illuminate. Philosophically, the encounter is a kind of cosmic confession. The comet spends most of its life hidden, hoarding its structure in the cold. Only when it dares to approach the sun does it reveal what it is made of, and in doing so, it cannot help but give part of itself away. The brightness we admire is the measure of that gift. Every comet's approach to the sun is unique. Some are brief visitors that loop past in weeks. Others linger for months, trailing their splendor across our skies. Some grow faint tails, barely visible to the eye. Others become spectacular enough to rival the planets. But all share this moment of truth, when the ancient meets the eternal, and the cold heart of the outer solar system stands in the glare of the star that gave it birth. And when the comet finally turns away, beginning the long retreat, it carries within it both loss and renewal. Loss because each encounter leaves it smaller. Renewal because the heat reshapes it, sometimes revealing hidden layers and deeper reservoirs of ice that will awaken again on the next approach. In this way, the life of a comet is not a steady line, but a heartbeat, a long silence punctuated by intense moments of brilliance. And each heartbeat is written in the language of ice and fire across the vast canvas of the solar system. The moment passes. The sun, so close, so overwhelming just days ago, now begins to shrink behind the comet, a brilliant beacon growing smaller with each hour. The jets that once roared into space start to quiet. The coma contracts, its vast cloud of gas and dust thinning in the cold. The tails, so luminous at perihelion, fade into transparency, becoming wisps that sunlight no longer fully catches. The comet is leaving. It does not turn in the way a ship would, nor accelerate like something escaping danger. The retreat is patient, obedient to gravity's slow choreography. Its path is already written, a long curve that will carry it away from the heat, back toward the deep dark. Yet the change is unmistakable. Every kilometer it travels brings cooler temperatures, slower reactions, and a dimming of the brief, extravagant light show it performed for the inner solar system. This is a season of silence for the comet, but also a season of reckoning. The nucleus, battered, pitted, reshaped, carries the marks of what has just happened. Fresh cliffs where old material collapsed, craters that were once vents for the geysers, smooth plains where dust settled from the last bursts of activity. The comet has lost mass, perhaps a thin layer across its entire surface, perhaps great chunks in sudden fractures. What remains is smaller, altered, but still whole. From a distance, the retreating comet looks inert, a shadow slipping away into space. But up close, there is still motion. Pockets of ice deep inside may continue to sublimate for a while, releasing faint, narrow jets. These are whispers compared to the booming outbursts of perihelion, but they are still signs of life, the last embers of the fire the sun lit within the comet's core. Eventually, even these will fade, leaving only dust gently settling onto the surface from the surrounding coma. For Earthbound observers, the comet's departure feels like the closing of a curtain. Nights that once held a spectacular visitor now return to their familiar constellations. The comet shrinks in telescopes, its brilliance reduced to a faint smudge against the starfield. Photographs show it receding, its tails dissolving into invisibility. The show is over, but the memory remains, and for those who saw it, a quiet understanding that they have witnessed something unrepeatable in their lifetime. There is a melancholy beauty in this stage of the journey. The comet is not dying, not yet, but it is withdrawing, retreating into a realm where it will again be unseen for years, decades, centuries, or even millennia. It will spend most of its life there, in that cold silence, as it has for billions of years. This is the paradox of a comet. It is both a wanderer and a hermit, both a performer and a recluse. Some comets will never return. Their paths may carry them into the far reaches of the solar system, never to swing inward again. Others will be captured by the gravity of planets, broken apart, or drawn into the sun itself. But those that survive will make the journey again, not as they are now, but as they will be, shaped by each close encounter, each shedding of material, each scar and crack. And so the retreat is also a form of preparation. The comet carries with it what remains of its ice, hidden beneath layers of dust and rock. It carries the patterns of its rotation, altered by the torque of outgassing. It carries the memory of its last approach, etched into its surface, waiting to be overwritten by the next. If we think of comets as messengers, then this part of the voyage is when the message is sealed again, stored in the depths until it is ready to be delivered once more. And perhaps the message changes each time, just as the comet itself changes, shaped by the heat of experience, by the friction of travel, by the long solitude between moments of revelation. As the darkness deepens, the comet enters regions of the solar system where the sun's warmth is little more than a distant suggestion. Here, temperatures plummet, and even the most volatile ices are locked solid again. The comet is preserved in a state that is almost timeless. Out here, years pass with little to mark them. The stars shift slowly overhead. Distant planets creep along their paths. The comet drifts, conserving what is left of its substance, waiting. For most of the universe, this is the comet's true existence, not the brief flare of brightness near the sun, but the long, frozen exile beyond the frost line. The spectacle we see is only a heartbeat in a lifetime of stillness. And yet that stillness is not empty. It is the deep inhale before the next approach, the gathering of potential, the patient readiness to awaken again. From our perspective, this part of the journey is invisible. No telescope on Earth can follow a comet once it has retreated far enough. It becomes another dark stone among countless others in the outer solar system. But the mathematics of its orbit assure us it is still there, following the curve set by the sun's pull, slowly arcing toward a distant turning point. If we could ride along, if we could endure the centuries or millennia it might take, we would see the solar system shrink into a small cluster of bright points behind us. The planets would become mere stars among stars. The sun would lose its glare and join the night. And all around, there would be nothing but blackness, broken only by the occasional glint of another distant traveler. It is here, in this profound quiet, that the comet begins to forget the sun's touch. The heat that once roared through its layers fades entirely. The gases that once surged into space are frozen once more, locked away until the cycle begins again. The comet sleeps, carrying within it both the scars of what has been and the seeds of what will come. And when, after unimaginable stretches of time, it begins to fall sunward again, it will awaken, changed. Each retreat is not an ending, but part of the long rhythm of a life measured in orbits, not years. The comet will return, though not the same as before, just as we too are never exactly the same when we circle back to old places in our own lives. This is the nature of the long retreat, not disappearance, but transformation through distance. The comet leaves the stage, but the story is not over. It is simply being written in another place, another time, in a language the sun will one day read again. The comet has crossed the invisible frontier where the sun's warmth no longer stir. 1T. The faint hiss of sublimati, the whispers it spoke as it retray, has fallen silent. No more jets spiral from it, sir. F.A.C.E. No more dust drifts outward to form a ghost. TL. Y. Ta. IL. There is only S. Till. LNE. SS. Now. This between, the long, frozen night. Here, HT. Here, HT. Here, HT. Here, HT. Here, in, the far, reaches OFT. He soul, AR. System, TI. Me moves D, differently. The ye, centuries, in, centuries, in, centuries. I, center. The comet ter. The comet in. The comet us. The comet ours. The comet's orbit. Past the planets. SD the planets. SD the planets. SD the planets. SD the planets. Past T, he dwarf whirl. Out here, there is no dawn. No dusk 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 is no dawn. No dusk. Only the con. Tamp blackness. D with stars that S. M frozen in there. WN eternal patience. It is easy to's creation. E comet as a S creation. One by the U's creation. Leftover peaks creation. Solar systems creation. Drifting without S tick. E. But that is not T's tick. TH. The comet is stills tick. Ing. STIL. L following a S tick. Sprec. IS. E is any clocks tick. The S. U. N. T. Inside. AR away still holds. It I. Ins. The comet ash of gravity. The ins. The water, methane, ammonia. In Eve. Ins. The water, methane, ammonia, and age. Ins. The water, M. Ethane, ammonia, F rock and dust. The water, M. Ethane, ammonia, and abs. All you cold. The water, M. Ethane, ammonia, and carbon dioxide are lock. Solid, molecules FRO, Zen in perfect still, S. The materials here. H. Ave not changed sin. The birth of the PLA's beginning. Are the same, CS. ND minerals TH, at's beginning. The solar NE, law for. 6 billion yeah, R, S, S beginning. ET is evolve. No wind. No sound. At. R. H is beginning. Air chapped. No wind. No sound. Cis. T. M's beginning. If we see wold. No wind. No sound. Erfac. E. Our boots. Crunching through. GHB. No wind. No sound. And the sun. That immense, life-giving star. Wind. No sound. And the sun. That immense, E, life-giving star, in our suit and the sun, that immense, life-giving star, S would be SH. AR, and the sun, that immense, life-giving star, any atmos, phi, re, and the sun, that immense, life-given, G star, would be lit, lo more the, and A, bright speck. Indistinguish. Habel at a glank. Efrom the oth. Rp. Oints of light. It is here t. Hat the comet dr. Eams. Not in the who, man's sense of dre. A. Ms. Not with st, ies, or visions. But in the slow, redless lingua, g. O. F. Cosmic memory. Ach at. Sometimes. Body remembers heat. Remem. Airs li. Ghd. Rememb. Rs the tr. Sforma. Sumtim. Es. Derwent when at last drew in. Ear th. Es. On. But thosem. Even collisions. Rare but not impossible. Y in the O. Uda. Rd. Arc. The comet. Has ti. Even collisions. Rare but not impossible. E. T without. Cha. In G. Time to orbit. In vas. E. Then collisions. Rare but not impossible. E. In orbits. Co. Mets are disturbed. A pass. E. Then collisions. Rare but in. Ot impossible. L. E. A giant PL. Ain. T my. T shift there. Course. E. Then collisions. Rare but in. Ot. Impossible. L. E. Can occur H. Air. Break. In G a comet I2. Pieces that will ech follow thei. Our own pat. H. Yet for most, this is S. M. Ply a time. FW. Iding of keeping THEIR frozen. CA, R, G, O safe, until gravity calls them H. OM, U it again. And T, is waiting is not meaning. Less. W, I, T, how'd it, there could be no renewal. T, he long. Old is wa. T, reserves the comet's fragi. Luisis. We drift, we wait. T finally swings sunward. It can, hine. Gain. W. Throughout the century, S of D. Eep free. We drift, we wait. Old exhaust itself in a few claws. Passes. Shetty. G. All its material. Orbit seasons. Blas. We drift, we wait. A tween orbits is what allows THEI to return. It is much the same orbit SE ascens, Re. We D. It is essential. When nothing seems to H, app. N. When we. RFA. Are from any source of he orbit SE ascens, tie-in. We D. It is essential. Ho. LD onto what remains, of O. UR, energy. These. Times can feel lick. Exil orbit SE ascens, re of. 10T. It is essential. YT. O survive the nexus embrace. Of T. Transformati. We too have our B. A tween orbit SE. Ascens, when. The I. T is essential. Ini. N. G but in simply S embrace. Fro. M the outside. This frozen internal, you'd seems empty. Fro. M the I. Inside. I. T is essential. If. He comet could S's ember. Ace. APS. It way old. T. Us that there is no shame in. But here, S. Islances. That street ilns. S is not. Failure. That even when I. Ember Ace. Ibble. It I. S Street. Illinois. On its S life. Where carrying. But here, T. Th. E seeds of ono. Their E encounter. Another. Oment in the sun. Ember Ace. And so it, drift, T. S. A dark S life. A sea of dark S. But here, Eing. INE prop, L's it. No SA, Illinois catch. E. S. Any win. Its motion is T. Of quiet momentum. One day far ahead. Unfolding's life. Orbit it was give. But here go. T. The aphelion. M around, D it MOV. E. S as well, planets circling, of quiet, momentum. One day far ahead. Asteroids is life, G in, their belts. But here, far, the aphelion. Ness, the cha, N, guess are almost imperceptible, of quiet, momentum. One day far ahead. The comet, S life, lunge, are than its moments of light. The aphelio. N, NEH, human, it sleeps. Most of the time it is not, of chew, yet, momentum. One day, far ahead, why? Most of, T, time at IS simply wait. ING in the dark. The aphy, Leo, in dark, is its leaps. It is AP, lace of potential, of chew, yet, momentum. One day, far ahead, the comet, W, L reach TH, E farthest P, into its orbit, the aphy, Leo, N, it W, ill, its leaps. Not in THE way a living thing pow, SES, but in THE sense that its S, P'd will slow T, O, TS minimum, the arc of I, TS path turning back Taua. RD, the sun its leaps, LL mark the beginning of another low, ing fall inward. Light will return, slowly at first, in a quickening flood. The comet will awaken AG, Ein, but for now, its leaps. And if we listen in our imagination, we might hear the faint ticking of the cosmic clock, not in seconds or minutes, but in orbits and epochs. The comet is not lost. It is simply between. The slow turn at aphelion is almost imperceptible. There is no sound to mark it, no sudden lurch, no blazing signal to announce the change. Yet something profound has happened. The comet, after years or centuries at the edge of the solar system, has begun its long fall inward. The sun is still unimaginably far away, so far that its warmth does not yet touch the comet's surface, but the invisible tether of gravity has shifted. The outward journey is over. The homeward journey has begun. If we could place a clock here, it would not measure time in seconds or minutes, but in orbits of Neptune, in slow spirals of the Milky Way's arm. The comet is in no hurry. The path ahead will take decades, maybe millennia. Yet in the mathematics of its motion, there is now a different trajectory, a curve that leans sunward. At first, nothing changes. The black sky remains absolute. The stars keep their cold watch. But deep within the comet, the smallest changes begin. Changes so subtle they might be measured not in degrees, but in whispers. The surface is still frozen hard, but the balance of forces has tipped. Each passing day brings it imperceptibly closer to the light. As the comet drifts inward, the solar system begins to stir in ways it cannot predict. The planets it will pass have moved into new configurations. The gravitational fields they cast are like shifting tides, altering the comet's speed, bending its path in ways that might shave years or centuries from its return. Some comets are captured into new orbits this way. Others are flung into deeper space. This one, this ancient traveler, keeps to its destined arc. It has been away for so long that the solar system it is returning to may not remember it. The world that once saw it blaze in its skies might have forgotten or changed entirely. Civilizations rise and fall in the space between a comet's visits. On Earth, entire languages may vanish in the time it takes a comet to make one round trip. When it last passed, forests may have grown where there are now cities. Deserts may have bloomed and withered again. The comet carries no awareness of this, but it is, in a way, a messenger from the past, a traveler who left long ago and now returns to find the landscape transformed. Its ices still hold the same ancient dust, the same unaltered molecules from the dawn of the solar system. But the world it returns to will not be the same one it left. As it moves inward, the first signs of awakening begin. At some invisible threshold, still far from the sun, a single molecule of carbon dioxide sublimates from solid to gas. It slips away from the surface, free after eons of stillness. Others follow, not in a rush but in a gradual seep. These are the first breaths of the comet's return. The black shroud of space gives way slowly to a faint halo, a coma, as more gases escape, carrying with them flecks of dust that scatter sunlight. The comet is beginning to clothe itself again in light. It is not yet a spectacle, not yet the celestial flame that will draw eyes from every continent, but its transformation has begun. For those watching from the inner planets, the comet's reappearance will seem sudden. A new speck of light will be charted by telescopes, its path plotted, its speed measured. Astronomers will check their records, searching for the last time it came. Perhaps they will find an entry from long ago, a note in an ancient star catalog, or a story told by a civilization now long gone, describing a fiery object crossing the night sky. Perhaps they will not find it at all, and will declare it a new visitor, unaware that it has been here before. For the comet, such distinctions mean nothing. It is simply returning as it always has, on a schedule written in gravity and frozen into its bones. Yet there is something poetic in the way a comet re-enters the solar system. It does not announce itself all at once. It begins in silence, with a subtle brightening that only the most patient observers will notice. It is as if it is shy at first, reluctant to reveal itself until it has drawn closer, until its tail begins to unfurl like a banner caught in solar wind. The unfamiliarity of its return lies not in the comet itself, but in everything around it. It is the same object, the same frozen traveler that last passed here long ago, but it comes into a world that has turned over in its absence. The planets are in different places. The moons were new craters. Even the sun is in a different region of the galaxy. Nothing is exactly where it was before. This is the paradox of the comet's journey. It is both timeless and a witness to time's passage. It returns unaged to a universe that has aged around it. As it draws closer to the inner solar system, its pace quickens. The sun's gravity pulls harder now, and the comet's path steepens inward. The coma swells. Jets of gas erupt from cracks in its crust, forming streams that twist into the tail that will one day stretch millions of kilometers across space. It is preparing for its moment of brilliance, though it does not know it. And somewhere, perhaps on Earth, perhaps on a distant moon with a telescope pointed sunward, someone will notice. The familiar constellations will carry a new, slow-moving light. Observers will calculate where it will go, when it will pass, how bright it will become. They will give it a name, or rediscover its old one. They will watch its approach as if it were a guest, not realizing it is simply coming home. The comet is now far from its silent aphelion. It has entered the realm where change accelerates, where the dark quiet is replaced by a gradual unfolding of energy. Soon its return will no longer be a secret. Soon the skies will remember it. But for now, it continues inward, still mostly unfamiliar, still mostly unnoticed, a thought that has just begun to form in the universe's mind. At first, it is only a number in a table, an extra point of light, faint, moving just enough between photographs to mark it as something more than a star. Astronomers log its position, check it against old charts, and run the calculations. Within hours, the orbit begins to take shape, and the shape tells a story. It is a long ellipse stretching far beyond the outer planets, a path that arcs into the cold silence of the Oort cloud before curving back toward the sun. A returning traveler, a comet. Soon the news passes quietly between observatories. The calculations say it will brighten. The projections suggest it might become visible to the naked eye in a few months. Already, telescopes are turning toward it. Cameras begin capturing not just a point of light, but a growing blur. The coma swelling as solar heat reaches deeper into the frozen nucleus. The sky has begun to remember. It is a slow remembering, the way an old memory comes back in fragments. A smell, a sound, a face seen in the corner of vision. The comet brightens, then brightens again. Observers compare its current position with historical records. Someone finds a match in a 12th century Chinese star chart. Another in an Arabic manuscript describing a white dragon with a tail that stretched across the heavens. The names given then are different from the ones it will bear now, but they all speak of awe. The public notices when photographs start appearing, not as artful compositions, but as proof that something rare is on its way. Headlines call it the visitor or the messenger from the edge. Articles explain how it has traveled for centuries to return, how its ice is older than Earth itself, how some of the water in our oceans may once have come from comets like it. For those watching the night sky, the transformation is unmistakable. Night by night, the comet's tail lengthens. At first, it is a pale brushstroke against the black. Then it becomes a river of light, curving across constellations. The tail always points away from the sun, pushed by the solar wind, a banner announcing that this is no ordinary star. As it approaches, the comet becomes a kind of mirror for human thought. Poets call it the tear of the cosmos. Scientists call it a time capsule. Children call it magic. It is all of these at once, a streak of light that refuses to be reduced to just one thing. And yet, for all the wonder it stirs, the comet itself remains unchanged in its intent. It does not come to deliver a message. It does not come to inspire. It simply follows its orbit as it has for millions of years. It is we who attach meaning to its return. Some cultures will mark its arrival with festivals, others with prayers. In earlier times, a comet's appearance might have been feared, an omen of disaster. In our age, it is more often a reason to look up, to remember that we are part of a vast and ancient system of motion. Night after night, the comet grows brighter still. It is visible now even in cities where the sky is usually drowned by artificial light. People step out onto balconies, into parking lots, onto rooftops to see it. For many, it will be the only comet they ever witness. In the countryside, where the darkness is deeper, the view is almost overwhelming. The comet's head burns white against the black. Its tail stretches so far it seems to curve with the sky itself. Photographers capture it above mountains, lakes, deserts, and temples. Each image seems to confirm something unspoken, that this visitor belongs not to one place, but to everyone under the sky. Meanwhile, spacecraft in the inner solar system have turned their instruments toward it. Probes record the composition of its coma, detecting water vapor, carbon monoxide, methane, traces of complex organics. These are the building blocks of life, the same molecules that once fell to Earth in the age before oceans. The science confirms what the poetry already knew. The comet is both ancient and vital, a remnant of creation still capable of seeding worlds. The closer it comes, the faster it moves. In a few short weeks, it will reach perihelion, its nearest point to the sun. The heat will drive off more gas, more dust, creating a tail that might stretch tens of millions of kilometers. In those days, the comet will be at its most luminous, a sight bright enough to rival the moon. And when it reaches that point, there will be a strange quiet in the human reaction. The headlines will be fewer, not because the sight is less remarkable, but because it has become something so present, so constant that it feels like part of the world. People will plan walks under the comet's light. Lovers will meet to watch it. Children will try to follow its path with their eyes until they fall asleep under blankets. In those moments, the comet will no longer feel like an intruder from deep space. It will feel like something that belongs here, as if it has always been part of our sky. The unfamiliar will have become familiar. The sky will have remembered, but the memory will not last. The comet's path will soon curve away again, the sun's pull bending it outward. The days will come when its light fades, when the tail becomes faint, when even telescopes can barely track it. Yet for those who saw it, the memory will stay, in photographs, in sketches, in stories told to children who might live to see its return. In the quiet certainty that somewhere in the dark, it is still moving, carrying within it the unchanged ice and dust from the birth of the solar system, waiting for the next time the sky remembers. It begins almost imperceptibly. The comet is still there, still tracing its arc across the sky, but each night its light seems a little thinner, a little less urgent. The tail shortens. The core dims. The once silver river streaming from its head now looks more like a ghost of itself, a faint mist dissolving into the black. The newspapers stop printing daily updates. The live streams that tracked its progress now have fewer viewers. Even the chatter on social media shifts away, drawn toward other novelties. The comet, once a centerpiece of human attention, is becoming what it has always been, a solitary traveler returning to the deep. For those who keep watching, the change is bittersweet. In the first nights of its fading, you notice the stars reclaiming their usual dominance. The comet still moves, but it no longer commands the same reverence from casual stargazers. It has slipped from spectacle into quiet presence, like the final pages of a book you don't want to finish. Astronomers continue their measurements. They chart its trajectory, its shrinking coma, the reduced activity from its surface. Some know with clinical precision how many days remain until it can no longer be seen without a telescope. Others, though, watch not just with instruments but with a kind of personal reluctance, as if hoping that the numbers are wrong, that the comet might linger just a little longer. The night of its last naked eye appearance passes quietly for most of the world. In some remote places, small gatherings form. People camp in open fields or sit on the hoods of cars, sipping coffee from thermoses, watching the fading visitor. The air is still. No one rushes the moment. It is enough simply to be there. If you've been following it for weeks or months, the loss feels strange. The comet's presence had become part of your mental calendar. You looked for it the way you look for a familiar streetlight or the moon through a bedroom window. Its retreat leaves a shape in the sky where your attention used to rest. This is the quiet heartbreak of astronomy. Everything you fall in love with is moving away from you. Stars drift. Galaxies spin apart. Comets vanish into darkness for lifetimes. The sky teaches us that nothing stays, and in that lesson, there is both sadness and grace. For the comet itself, of course, there is no goodbye. It is not leaving us in sorrow. It is simply continuing along the path gravity has carved for it, a path it has followed countless times before. We are the ones who attach the meaning to its passing. We are the ones who feel the loss. Days become weeks, and now even the telescopes must strain to catch it. The bright, textured coma has collapsed into a faint point. The tail is gone. To the human eye, it looks almost like any other star, but not to those who know. Those who have tracked it can still sense the motion, the slow glide outward into the colder reaches of the solar system. By now, its speed is increasing. The sun's warmth is behind it, and the pull of deep space is ahead. The volatile ices that once erupted into vapor are freezing solid again. The comet is sealing itself in its own ancient cold. Its surface will remain untouched for decades, centuries, perhaps millennia, until some future orbit brings it back into the light. We cannot follow it. Our spacecraft, fast as they are, cannot match the speed of a comet in full retreat. All we can do is mark the numbers in its orbital period, make predictions for the next time it will return, and leave a message in our records for those who will come after us. It passed this way once. You will see it again. And that is the strange gift of a comet's goodbye. It is never entirely final. It is a departure written in a promise, the promise of return, even if that return will come long after we are gone. For the child who saw it for the first time, the memory may last a lifetime. For the elder who saw a different comet decades ago, this new one may join the old in the gallery of remembered skies. For cultures that still tell stories about such visitors, its passing will become another chapter in a long oral history of lights that come and go. The comet itself does not carry these memories. They belong to us. And in that way, perhaps the comet has done what its metaphor suggests. It has planted a thought we did not have before. The idea that something can be both fleeting and eternal, both a momentary spark and an ancient traveler. One night you look for it again and realize you can no longer find it, even with binoculars. The sky is the same and yet emptier. You turn away knowing that somewhere beyond your sight, it continues on. It does not stop for your farewell. And so the goodbye is not an event but a slow unthreading, a fading, until absence feels normal again. The thought remains, but the presence is gone. Somewhere far from the sun, the comet sails on into silence. Out there, time moves differently. Out there, the distances between encounters are measured not in days or years, but in epochs. When it comes back, the world will be older. The continents may have shifted. Languages may have changed. Humanity itself may be different. And yet, when the sky remembers, we will look up again and see it not as a stranger, but as an old friend returning from the dark. Until then, the night holds the space it once occupied. The stars above remain, but you cannot help glancing toward the place where it used to be, the empty coordinates that are now a kind of private shrine. You do not speak of it often, but when you do, you find the words come out softly. It was beautiful. It was brief. It will come again. When the comet vanishes from sight, it does not vanish from existence. Somewhere beyond the reach of our telescopes, it glides into the outer darkness, a darkness so vast that light itself seems to hesitate there, scattered among the sparse grains of far-off stars. We imagine the comet as asleep, but sleep is not quite the right word. It is not dreaming. It is not waiting in the way we wait for a bus or a letter. It is simply being held in the slow, deep rhythms of an orbit far larger than our lives. In this place, sunlight is not a presence, but a memory. The heat that once boiled gases from its surface is gone. Its trail of dust has been scattered by the solar wind, erased like footprints under a drifting tide. Around it, the black is almost absolute, the kind of black you don't just see but feel, as if space itself were pressing inward. Yet within that blackness, there is potential. The comet is not dead. Its ices are locked away, sealed in a casing of rock and carbon, preserved in the freezer of the Kuiper Belt, or even farther in the uncharted Oort cloud. It carries the same atoms it always has, atoms that once danced in the birth cloud of the sun, atoms older than Earth. And so it becomes easy to see the comet as something more than rock and ice. It becomes a metaphor for the unspoken thought, the unrealized vision, the idea that has not yet stepped into the light of awareness. Somewhere in the mind, beyond the constant chatter of everyday thinking, there are thoughts like this, cold, sealed away, untouched by the glare of attention. These thoughts may stay hidden for years, decades. You live your life without them, not because they aren't part of you, but because their time has not yet arrived. They travel long, slow arcs through the subconscious, invisible most of the time, but inevitable in their return. Perhaps one night you cannot sleep, and in the quiet, you feel the faintest stirring of something, a glint at the edge of perception. It is not fully formed. It is only the whisper of a shape, the suggestion of a meaning. You turn toward it, and it slips away again. That is how comets live inside us, not as constant presences, but as rare arrivals. When they come, they can change the way we see everything. They carry material from our own deep beginnings, memories, feelings, fragments of stories we didn't know we remembered. And when they leave, they take part of us with them, storing it for some far-off return. Scientists might describe the comet's journey in equations: gravity, velocity, inclination, eccentricity. But a poet might say it is tracing the invisible line between what is known and what is possible. It reminds us that the boundary between thought and reality is not fixed, but in motion. In the long stretches when the comet is gone, you might forget its precise appearance. But you remember how it felt to see it. The awe, the sense of connection to something beyond your control or understanding. This is how an idea feels before it becomes an invention, a work of art, or a decision that changes your life. It exists first as a mood, a color, a gravitational tug in the dark. We rarely think of the mind as having its own outer space, but it does. There are the bright planets of everyday thoughts, the familiar constellations of beliefs and memories. And then there is the far edge, where strange objects drift in long shadows. Some of these objects will never approach the sun. They will remain distant, never thawing into something visible. Others will one day fall inward, pulled by forces we barely sense, and blaze across the inner sky of the mind. And here lies the wonder. You cannot schedule such a return. You cannot command a comet to appear any more than you can force a hidden thought to reveal itself. The only way to meet them is to remain open, to watch the sky, to listen to the silence, to make space for the unexpected. This is the slow patience the universe teaches. The comet is not lost, it is merely out of sight. The thought is not gone, it is merely out of mind. Both are in motion, both are obeying the same deep rules, and both will return when the conditions align. So when you think of the comet now, imagine it not in the fire of its closest pass, but in the deep quiet of its most distant point. Out there, it is gathering itself. Out there, it is holding the frozen material that will one day stream into light again. Perhaps when it comes back, it will pass even closer, burn even brighter. Perhaps it will carry new dust, new molecules, fragments from collisions or encounters we will never witness. And perhaps when the thought returns, it will carry with it the influence of everything that has happened in the years since you last felt it. Both comet and thought remind us that absence is not emptiness. It is simply part of the orbit. When we stand under the sky, knowing the comet is somewhere out there beyond the reach of even our most powerful instruments, we are reminded of how much exists beyond the visible, in space and in ourselves. And so we wait, not with impatience, but with trust, because we have seen it once, and we know it will come again. Some comets take years to return, some take centuries, and some will not come back for tens of thousands of years. Their orbits are so vast that, from the perspective of a single human lifetime, they may as well be one-way travelers. You and I could see them once in our lives, a brief streak across the sky, and then they will vanish into the outer darkness for longer than civilizations have existed. By the time they return, the language we speak may be gone. The continents may have shifted. The oceans may have risen or retreated. Humanity itself may be something different. This is not a reason for sadness. It is a lesson in scale. When a comet appears in the night sky, we experience it as ours. We step outside, point upward, take photographs, and call friends to share the sight. But in truth, the comet does not belong to us. Its journey is not timed for our calendars. It moves to a rhythm that predates us and will outlast us. Astronomers who calculate its orbit may note with quiet awe that the next perihelion will occur in the year 9643 or 27418 or beyond. They will write this number in neat columns, knowing full well that no one alive today will see that date. It is not a prediction for us. It is a message to the future. We are not accustomed to thinking in such long spans. Even history feels long when it stretches back a few thousand years to the age of pyramids or the first cities. But comets are reminders that the universe thinks in millions and billions, that we are, in a sense, a single moment in its ongoing thought. And yet, there is something profoundly moving in knowing that a comet we see tonight will blaze again for someone else, someone who may not yet be born, whose world may be unrecognizable to us. It means that beauty is not confined to our personal timeline. It means that the universe shares its wonders across generations. The same is true of certain ideas. Some thoughts are so vast, so intricate, that they cannot take root in the present. They need time, not years, but eras. They are seeds that will lie dormant until the conditions are right. A scientist in the 1600s might have the glimmer of a theory that cannot be proven until the 2100s. A poet might write lines that will not be understood until the culture has changed enough to hear them. These thoughts are like comets on enormous orbits. They pass once, dropping fragments into the minds of a few, then disappear into the archive of memory and record. Centuries later, they return, brighter now, more visible, ready to be claimed by a new age. You and I live in the light of comets whose previous passes we never saw. We carry technologies, philosophies, and scientific principles that were once lonely sparks, waiting through centuries of obscurity. In this way, we are already the beneficiaries of returns we never witnessed. There is a kind of humility in accepting that our role is not always to complete the journey, but to witness it, to pass the story forward, to keep the memory alive so that others will know where to look when the next appearance comes. Perhaps that is why ancient civilizations carved records of comets into stone, painted them onto cave walls, or embedded them in myths. They could not see the next past themselves, but they could speak to those who would. They could point at the sky and say, "When you see this again, remember us." It is easy to imagine that one night, millennia from now, someone will stand under a different sky, maybe with new continents beneath their feet, maybe under artificial suns, and see a comet we once watched together. They might not know our names, but they might know our observations, our diagrams, our words of awe. In that moment, we will have reached across time. And there is beauty, too, in knowing that we will never see every comet, that there will always be wonders reserved for other eyes. This ensures that mystery remains alive in the universe. Not all stories belong to us. Some are meant for those who come after. The universe is, in this way, generous but also impartial. It does not shape itself for any one generation. It offers moments, comets, eclipses, alignments, auroras, to whomever happens to be here when the timing is right. The rest is entrusted to the passage of time. When you think of the comets you will never see return, you can think of them not as losses, but as gifts you have helped prepare for others. You were here to witness their leaving. You were here to send them on their way, to add to the map, to whisper into the future, "It's coming back." And in this act, this small gesture of observation, of passing the memory forward, you become part of a chain far longer than any human life. A chain that loops through centuries, linking the night skies of the past to those of the future. So when the comet fades, and you know it will not return in your lifetime, do not grieve. Smile, for you have been part of a story whose ending is not yours to see, but whose arc you have touched. Because, in the quiet truth of astronomy, and in the long patience of the mind, every comet, and every idea, belongs not just to the moment that sees it, but to the future that awaits its return. If you stand under a night sky for long enough, not just a few minutes, but long enough for your eyes to fully adjust and for your mind to grow quiet, something changes. The stars no longer seem scattered. The darkness no longer feels empty. Patterns emerge, not just constellations drawn by ancient humans, but something deeper, the sense that this immense black tapestry is not inert, but alive with thought. It is tempting, of course, to dismiss the idea, to say a mind needs neurons, synapses, electrical signals. The universe is just matter, energy, gravity, and time. But when you watch comets trace their grand arcs, When you see how galaxies cluster like synaptic webs, when you note how light itself behaves, pausing, bending, choosing paths, the question begins to feel less naive. Perhaps the universe is not just a place where thoughts happen. Perhaps it is, in some way, a thought in itself. In the human brain, ideas form from the slow accumulation of signals, from pathways strengthening over time, from patterns repeating until they become meaningful. In the universe, stars ignite, die, and seed space with heavier elements, which gather into planets, which give rise to life, which evolves into minds capable of thinking about the stars. The rhythm is the same. The scaling is simply different. Comets in this analogy are not random debris. They are the fleeting sparks, the sudden bursts of brilliance that appear in the mind of the cosmos. They carry material and perhaps meaning from one region to another, linking distant parts of the great system. Some pass quickly, like passing whims. Others return on long cycles, like thoughts that resurface after centuries. If the universe is a mind, then every comet might indeed be a thought we haven't had yet, a possibility waiting in the wings, an idea orbiting through deep time, biding its moment. And when it appears in our sky, perhaps it is a whisper from that mind. Here is something to consider. This perspective changes the way we think about time. We humans are impatient thinkers. We want answers in hours, breakthroughs in years, progress in decades. But a universal mind would think in the tempo of eons. A thought that takes 100,000 years to complete would not feel slow to such a mind. It would feel natural. Our role, then, is not to expect the whole picture at once, but to notice the fragments as they pass, to record them, to share them, to treat each comet, each strange alignment, each rare astronomical event as if it were a word in a sentence we cannot yet read. And perhaps the sentence is not meant to be read by us alone. Perhaps it will take the entire lifespan of the universe for the thought to fully form. If that is true, then we are like neurons, individual and limited, yet vital to the greater network. We fire once in our brief lifetime, sending our signal forward, helping to sustain the current that allows the next signal to happen. We will never see the whole mind in action, but the mind could not act without us. The beauty of this view is that it restores meaning without demanding control. We do not have to direct the universe for it to be intelligent. We only have to participate in it. To live in a universe as mind is to live inside a work of art that is still being painted, one in which every color, every brushstroke, every pause matters. We might be the tiniest of strokes, but we are there, part of the composition. This also means that death is not an erasure, but a transformation. In a brain, neurons die and are replaced, but the thought continues. In the universe, stars burn out, species vanish, civilizations fall, yet the larger pattern remains and even grows richer from what has come before. When we watch a comet fade into the distance, we might think of it not as leaving, but as retreating into the mind's depths to do its work unseen. It will return when the moment is right, not for us, but for the mind itself. And so, as we reach the end of this reflection, we find ourselves standing under that same night sky, perhaps a little quieter now, perhaps a little more patient. The comets will come and go. New stars will appear. Others will vanish. And through it all, the mind of the universe will continue its slow, immense thinking. We may never know the thought in its entirety, but we can know that we were part of it, that in our fleeting lifetime, we saw a spark in the darkness and recognized it for what it was. Not just ice and rock, not just a trajectory and a number, but a message, a small, bright fragment of a sentence still unfolding in the vast and endless mind of the cosmos.